Women Talk Radio with Sandra Beck and Linda Crater celebrate the thoughts and opinions of magnetic, spirited, and influential women. Each week, bold, brilliant women spark vigorous conversations on the complexities of life, love, and happiness. Now here are your hosts, Sandra Beck and Linda Crater.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Rusty McDonald, Kimberly Rinaldi, Amanda Testa, and Frankie Picasso. And I'm here with also my wonderful co-host, Linda Crater. We're going to talk about body image. And, you know, there's been a lot of things said about body image, but I can tell you that nothing is worse in a woman's life than being post-pregnancy 3 months and getting a divorce, because your body is at the absolute worst. I was like a pudding cup human being. Like everything jiggled where it shouldn't. And, you know, I had these one massive boob. I had the uniboob because milk only let down in one boob. So I had one big one, one little one. And the concept of being naked with someone was just enough to put me over the edge. And the funny thing is, girls, when I look back to my post-pregnancy pictures, 11 years later now, I'm like,
you look great.
You look great. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if I had body dysmorphic disorder, if I had postpartum, you know, divorce depression, you know, just add in, you know, feel free to add in anything at this point. But how do we get so far away from what we really are? I mean, I looked in the mirror every day and cursed every bit of my body. And now 11 years later, I look back and go, wow, you are a fox. Really?
But the mind is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And your body hears everything your mind says. I mean, it's very confusing sometimes.
But you're comparing it to magazine covers all the time. You're always comparing yourself to other women. You're never comparing yourself to you. And that's why in that distance of time, when I look back at all the pictures and all the times I go, oh, I'm so fat. I go, gee, I wish I was that fat now. You know, I wish I looked like that now.
It's all relative.
I look pretty great. It's all relative. I have to tell you guys about the epiphany I had. This is such and I just had it. Like, it's crazy. I had an epiphany about 6 years ago, that I think I might have told you guys about this before, where I followed this trail back because every time I have to go to an event, I have to lose weight. It's like, oh, I can't do that until I lose weight. Can't do that until I lose weight. And I go, why do I do that? Right? Why do I do that? So I took this, you know, that thread, and I went back to, well, I was 9 years old, and my mother said, you want a puppy? You have to lose 9 pounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So then I'm sitting here now. I'm about to come to a conference, and I just lost 30 pounds and just gained 10 back. Okay. So I'm like, why am I gaining the 10 back? I took 4 months to take it off now. In like a month, I put it back on. Why am I doing this? Exactly when I know I'm going away and don't want it on. Why am I doing this? And the epiphany came because I was so rebellious that even though my mother made me lose that weight, I'm like, fuck you. You can't make me do that now, and I'm going to rebel against that and put it back on. Even though it's like taking your nose and cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Kimberly here. I am, it's funny because I have this body image that may surprise you ladies. I was a size 5, double D cup, adorable little thing until I was about 30. I'm now at 20. I weigh about 110 pounds more than I used to. I think I've doubled in size. I'm still a size 5 in my mind.
Wow. Good for you.
Good for you.
I walk past the mirror. I'm like, who's the fat old chick? Oh, shit, that's me.
Yeah. That's great if you got that in your head.
Yeah, I still, in my mind, I am still rocking hard body size 5, and that's never changed. I developed a really healthy self-image because I had to work at it. I grew up in a household where my mother ate a taquito and downed diet pills and was very open about it. And, you know, at 5'2" and 104 pounds, If she hit that 105-pound mark, then it was the sweatsuit and the, oh my God, I'm disgusting. Oh my God, I'm horrible. And as a child, I could see that was just, it made her miserable. It made us miserable. And I like cookies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm frank about it.
I can totally relate to that, Kimberly. This is Amanda here. And I know my mom was similar. I think there was not a day in her life that she wasn't on a diet. And I know that was from her conditioning as well. She tells me stories about her mother taking her to the doctor to get diet shots, which were speed, basically.
Yeah.
And they would come back all, ah. So I totally see how, and the media so much conditions us to believe that, we're not enough. There's billions and billions of dollars spent in marketing beauty products. And, if your butt's too big, it needs to look like this. And if your boobs are either too big or they're too small or you're too tall or you're too short or your hair's curly, it needs to be straight. Your hair's straight, it needs to be curly. So it's no wonder that we grow up feeling like we aren't enough because there's no way we can compete with the photoshopped images that we see.
Rusty, are you there? Can we hear Rusty McDonald?
I don't.
Okay, I'm going to just jump in here about those photoshopped images, because now you can use these apps on your phone and swipe, you got white teeth, then swipe, you have, because I'm the one that goes on Facebook and I blow up all the pictures to look at, like, the walls that are warped, because people have like shrunk their hip size. But this concept that we don't like ourselves the way we are is just brutal. And I'm going to share something that when I was broke, I perceived myself as much fatter than I was when I made a lot of money. And I came across this looking through my journal. And when I started making a lot of money a couple years ago, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I look pretty good. And I wasn't buying a lot of clothes. I actually banked all that money because I was frightened, because I've got 2 kids to support and raise. But it was amazing how my self-esteem was tied to my net worth, which was tied to my body image. We're really complex as women. I'm going to go to Frankie Picasso.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just say that the more expensive the clothes, the better they look on you, only because they give you more fabric, and so you go down in size. And that's the truth. That is the truth. I think that, my mom was 5'8" and always on a diet. I'm 5'1.5". And so that was her, that was probably the only thing she could compete with me about, what was, her height, her weight. And so that was a control issue, with me, I think. It's sad what we do to ourselves, and the voices that go on in my head. Kimberly, I wish I had your self-esteem, because the voices that go on in my head, I've screamed at them for being so mean before. I'm like, just stop. You're just like so rude. You're just so mean. Stop it.
You know what? And that's what it takes sometimes. And honestly, it took work for me. My dad's been gone almost 12 years. And at one point, they thought I had had a heart attack. It was an esophageal ulcer, serious enough on its own, but my dad pulled my husband aside and bless his heart, he didn't tell me until a couple years after my dad died. My dad pulled my husband aside and said, how could you let her get so big?
Oh.
It's affecting her health. And bless Mr. Rinaldi's heart, he looked my dad in the eye and he goes, let her? Have you ever met that woman? Nobody lets her do anything. She does what she wants.
And nobody could.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And, he's been getting up with me over the last 6 months, and we do yoga for a number of reasons. And I'm working on, because it does impact my health, and I'm over 50 now. But in all these years, he's only had one negative thing to say to me about my weight. And it was when he brought me home from the hospital after thinking I had had a heart attack. The man yelled at me the entire drive home from Costa Mesa to Whittier. For those of you who don't know, it's about a 90-minute drive in traffic. I love the man, and we do what we need to do. But goodness gracious, it's up to you to take control of what your thoughts are, and really work at only thinking good things about yourself. That's the only place you're going to come from.
It's funny. This is Linda. I saw this quote that I thought was very good, and it said, "Loving yourself is the greatest revolution." And I think that we go through so much, and women...
Revolution or revelation?
Revolution.
I love it.
Because I think that we've had shows on overthinking, and I think, weight and body images falls right into that category of overthinking. But when you own... How do you put this? When you own it and you feel good and comfortable about yourself, you give off to the world a totally different dynamic. And so the self-confidence, you don't have to be the perfect weight, the perfect dress, the perfect size, the perfect person. If your self-confidence is strong and you watch people who are just lit from within and they're comfortable and you just love them and you don't think one thought about what weight is she? But don't you think that's true of a lot of things? But it requires self-awareness, and that's the hard
Confidence.
part.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
To pull it off.
Yeah. I'm considered morbidly obese, and I have had people who are smaller than me just in tears over being fat-shamed in public. I'm a huge personality. If anybody even looked at me crosswise, they did it behind my back because I'm perfectly content and happy in who I am.
But see, that shows, don't you think? Yeah. Oh, Sandra, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it does. And I was watching the Olympics the other night, and I was watching the luge and the ice dancers and some of the figure skaters. And it's really great to see the different female body shapes all being strong. You can be tiny and strong. You can be tall and strong. There was this one ice dancer who had these muscular legs. And at first I was like, wow, she's got big legs. Then I'm like, she's doing triples and triple Lutzes and triple camels and triple whatever. And you admire that. And all of a sudden the body takes on a different form. And I was really glad not to see that it was just, the twig parade.
Yeah, I had a waitress the other day, and she came and she had like very muscular arms and very muscular like big, like almost like a man's guns, And I just looked at her and she had a very tiny face, and I go, "What's your sport?" And she laughed. She goes, "Yeah, I work out a lot." And I'm like, "Yeah," because she had no chest left, like those people who overwork, but really really big arms and really big legs. And I thought, wow, good for you, but you look strong. You look,
And now we're going to go on a break. We'll be back right after these messages. You're listening to Dynamic Women Talk Radio.
We're Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and we'll return after these short messages.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
It's easy to fall into the trap of fad dieting. Some look so simple, effortless, and satisfying. But that's not always reality. If you need to lose weight, it's very important to your health and well-being that you do. Being overweight brings a whole host of problems, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But the way to achieve permanent, long-lasting weight loss is to build healthy habits that will last a lifetime. Most people who have lost weight and kept it off have made lifestyle changes with low-calorie healthy eating and daily exercise that they can continue the rest of their lives. But some have gone on fad diets, like liquid diets, prepared food diets, or dramatically reduced calories and have lost unwanted pounds, only to put the weight back on eventually. It's time to build healthy eating habits that will keep the weight off permanently. You can do it.
It's Marching in her.
Have you seen the video of the little seal that jumped into the back of a boat to escape being eaten by killer whales? A family was whale watching near Vancouver Island, British Columbia, when they noticed a pod of orcas swimming around their boat. All of a sudden, a harbor seal swam up to the stern of their boat and jumped in with the orcas, hot on his tail. When a whale leaps out of the water, exposing most of its body, it's called breaching. There are 32 different species of seals distributed throughout the world, and are found from polar to tropical waters. The largest concentrations of seals in the U.S. are in California and New England. Everyone who has seen the video agrees this was one lucky seal. What's another word for the fear of the sea? Thalassophobia.
It's Marching in her.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Welcome back. This is Linda Crater, and we are going to continue our discussion about body image. And on the break, we were talking about how the decades have brought different, quote, looks. So in the 70s, it was thin as in with Farrah Fawcett, but that's also when anorexia and diet pills started to really, skyrocket in this country. In the 80s, fitness was added, so the supermodels and the body mass index went very low for all of these people who were, in the magazines and in the media, which really hasn't changed even today. In the 90s, it was Baywatch, where you were thin with curves, and that's almost a near impossibility without surgery. And then it was interesting. I looked up this thing yesterday that said even in the media, they call it the shrinking woman. Even plus sizes are now decreasing. Vanity sizing is huge. And you don't even know what size you really are anymore, because we're being manipulated about what we think about our body image. So what would you say, and I'll throw this out to Rusty, what would you say is in now? What is the current phase?
Revolution.
Meaning?
Resistance, authenticity, and total revolting. We are in this place where, the Me Too and the enough is enough mentality, we're in this place of, I don't want to say, feminism, but it is a feministic movement in the sense that we're just going, you know what, I like pizza. If you don't like me with my fluffiness and my pizza, then move on. I think we've become more of an educated society. I think women have become less dominating or dominated. I think, in the Victoria era, you had to have a very small waist and large hips because that was the fashion. That was very important. And you wore these corsets that actually broke your ribs and gave you miscarriages so that you had a prominent look. In the 50s and the 60s, there was the Twiggy Revolution, and she was gorgeous, but she was very thin. And then you had Marilyn Monroe, who was more my body size. She was curvaceous, and she was voluptuous. And
voluptuous, I like that.
I love that word. I'm fluffy now, and my birthday is coming up next week, and I'm just kind of really honoring my over 40-ness because I used to be a model. And when I was 22 years old, I was told I could no longer model because my rib cage was too large. I was a size 4. I'm 5'11". I was 118 pounds.
Oh my!
I had too many ribs.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I modeled for some major companies, and my career had to end because I was too fat for their standards. And my personality is definitely, I don't know if you ladies have ever watched Tank Girl, but I'm kind of that girl. I'm like, middle finger up, I'm going to do it anyway. So I found different ways of being who I am and expressing myself and my own unique beauty. But I've also found that in this time period, it's very confused. Like, look at Venus Williams, gorgeous. And she's got guns and she's got thighs, but she works out like a mother. And people mock her and they make fun of her and they put her down because she is strong.
I'm going to jump in here. Sorry, it's Frankie here. I think that, it would probably take very little time if we celebrated a larger body shape and it became the fashion. Mm-hmm. And then everybody would turn from, the thin people and go, "Ooh, you people are like too thin." Like the Nigerian guys really like the big girls, right? And turn it around and say, "Hey, you're in now." Like Ashley Graham. Love Ashley Graham. Love her, right?
Melissa McCarthy.
She looks fantastic. She's not fluffy. She's strong. She's big. She's got big boobs like me, like Kimberly Rinaldi. She's got that shape, right? And that's, what's wrong with that? That's supposed to be womanly. But you're not supposed to look womanly. You're supposed to, hide that all, or just, I don't know. It's confusing. You're right. But then J-Lo came in with a big butt and everybody wanted a butt.
I love J-Lo. Yep.
Hey, man. Girl, she dates the youngins.
Yeah, you can have it all. Why not? But it's all, as we said at the beginning, it's all about confidence. Whatever you can pull off, that's what's going to be in fashion for you, because people are just going to accept it, right?
Yeah, I Kimberly here. I worked in healthcare for 20 years, and we have a multi-billion-dollar industry that panders to poor body image, and that's the weight loss industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally have people in my family, in my circle of friends, and people that I worked with who went through major surgery, the gastric bypass options, in order to change their external circumstances.
I like the way you put that.
Yeah. I've watched this happen, and I'm on the fence because something does need to be addressed here. Something needs to be done. We are one of the heaviest nations in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have access to low-quality food 27 out of 24 hours a day, and we take advantage of it. We're sedentary. Sitting is the new smoking. So something needs to be done. I think health needs to be addressed. But when you have a multi-billion-dollar industry that preys on, the last-ditch hope that you're going to lose the weight, that you're going to get back into a reasonable size, and you get there and you lose 100 pounds or 200 pounds or 400 pounds, whatever it is, and it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
It simply isn't sustainable. Every single person I know who has lost over 100 pounds, I've watched them gain it back. I met with a bariatric physician, not because I wanted surgery, but because I wanted to have a conversation about this. And he said, I was actually in a really good place because I never really dieted. He's like, when you decide to lose the weight, you haven't screwed up your metabolism.
Yeah.
Go and do something healthy. Stop, put the damn cookies down, walk away from the table and do something. And that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm working on. And it's a, half pound to 1 pound a week. It's not happening overnight, but I didn't gain the weight overnight, despite what I tell people.
That's true.
We need to address it from a health perspective more
that's
than
a healthy weight loss. That's smart.
Yeah, and more than how do I look in this pair of jeans?
Marvelous, darling.
Yeah.
But you know what? We've got weight and we've got ageism too. Because now I'm 60. So now you're looking in a mirror and going, "Oh, there's a wrinkle I didn't have last week," and so now it's like you're getting old and you're getting fat. Like that's not fair.
And facial hair.
Yeah,
and a beard. And a beard and mustache. Yeah.
Okay, Amanda, time for you.
So, I just want to speak to what Kimberly was saying about the health aspect of this, and that it's interesting. My husband works in healthcare, and he is so about, being your own doctor. Like, you take care of yourself first, because the billion-dollar industries out there around weight loss, but also medicine is like, do whatever you want. There's a medicine to fix it. However, you have to take responsibility for your own health. But with that, your own, creating this well-being within yourself so that you have this basis within you of being worthy, of being deserving, no matter what size you are. Because the reason a lot of times why people that lose these huge amounts of weight, say they lose 100 pounds of weight and they gain it back, is because they haven't done the inner work to really feel good inside and like create this love and safety within themselves. And so that's kind of one of the issues too, is like you have to create that within yourself, like in your body, in your bones, knowing that you are enough just as you are. And then it makes it so much easier to make these healthy changes because you are coming from a place of really loving yourself and your body and wanting, versus like, I can't eat this cookie. It's like, if you want a cookie once in a while, that's fine. But when you're coming from a place of like, is this really what my body wants? And like connected to it, then it's easier to make the choices because you don't feel like you're like withholding something from yourself. I don't know. That's kind of my personal experience. And I suffered from anorexia and bulimia for many, many years. So as part of my recovery, like just having to learn to create this peace with food. Do
you think, I'm going to bring this into the body image thing. Do you think a lot of these impressions that we're all having now as adults came, some of it from family and how you watched? I mean, there's a fine line between watching your weight and eating healthy, but what message are you giving when you stand on a scale and you harumph and you're miserable for the rest of the day, and then you push your food to the side and don't eat, versus just making small adjustments? Am I making sense?
Yes.
I think. Okay, so what do you think?
Well, I think that the commercials have to come off with ooey gooey food and stop making these snacks and stop making all this stuff that is sugar and all the stuff that appeals to people who are lonely and depressed and can't stop themselves from having it, and put up fresh food and put up commercials where that stuff looks amazing and you can't wait to eat that. That's what needs to happen.
That would be great.
And
but
also,
I think the Dorito people won't be happy.
No. No, they won't be happy. But you know what? That's the only way that especially in America, you don't see this other places. You don't see it. Like, I come to the States and the food is cheap, and you go to a Golden Corral and it's $9 and eat all you want. We don't have that in Canada. You can't eat all you want. You don't have that stuff here.
Well, and in some cultures, being overweight is considered a status symbol.
Yes. Because you're wealthy.
Because you're wealthy, that you can afford that amount of food. So, I mean, this whole thing is manufactured in our own heads and by the media.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kimberly, where would you go with this? Because I don't know that we have the pull to get the commercials off.
Honestly, I think it comes down to, there are three things you have to maintain as you age. One is flexibility. The other is endurance, and the third is strength. So, I'm a size 20, but I can still rock a full split because I've been doing yoga my whole life. It's not as easy with the belly and, the side boobs and the back boobs, but I can still rock a full split. I have back cleavage. I'm open. I'm honest, So, endurance, I can walk 10 miles, 15 miles in a day with my Fitbit. I can do an hour on the treadmill and knock it out. Strength, I can't lift myself up with my upper body at this point anymore. Mm-hmm. So, think about these things as you're aging. Think about where you are. It's strength, endurance, and flexibility. Those are the things that are going to keep you healthy.
Well, and we're going to have to go on a break, and we'll be back to talk further about strength, flexibility, endurance, and strength. We'll be right back.
We're Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and we'll return after these short messages.
Do not disturb sign has been around as long as there have been hotels where discretion was a bitter part of value. One lecturer at Cornell University School of Hotel Administration traces the do not disturb sign roots to the aristocracy of the early 20th century at grand establishments such as the Ritz in Europe. It sure is annoying when you just want to be a slug of bed and someone knocks at the door and says, "Housekeeping." What's the word for the semi-conscious state between sleep and wakefulness? Hypnopompic. There are days when I wish I could wear a do not disturb sign around my neck. What do you call someone who wants to lay in bed all day? A scabrelacher. I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Salt is in nearly everything we eat, and many times it makes food taste so delicious. Even though the 2010 Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends limiting sodium to less than 2,300 milligrams a day, Men's Health magazine states that the average American takes in about 3,300 milligrams of sodium every single day. Your body needs some sodium to function properly because it helps transmit nerve impulses. It influences the contraction and relaxation of muscles, and it helps maintain the right balance of fluids in your body. But most of us are getting far more sodium than is recommended. Check out the sodium content in the foods you are eating and limit soy sauce, Parmesan cheese, bacon, smoked salmon, ramen noodles, and salami. It's time to kick the habit of too much sodium. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
Welcome back. We're talking today with Kimberly Rinaldi, Frankie Picasso, Rusty McDonald, and Amanda Testa, and we are talking about body image. And on the break, we were talking about there really has to be inner work done before any outer work or results are going to take place. And yet that sounds so easy to say, but not so easy to do. So, Frankie, what do you think about that?
Oh my gosh, Linda, I just love this topic.
All
you know,
right.
the iceberg, right? 80% of what we believe is below water, is in our subconscious. And so our subconscious is actually running the show. And what we're saying on the outside, you know, our conscious mind is going, I'm going to be thin. Watch, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And willpower doesn't have anything to do with it. It's everything to do with your belief system. And so if your belief system says, you know, I can't get there, I'll never be that. You know, the way that people speak their language, it means so much. So the inner game is really, like Kimberly said, you know, before the break, people had this weight loss surgery, and yet they all gain it back. Why? Because their inner game isn't in alignment with what their conscious mind wanted. And its conscious mind is always going to win. And it lies to us. You know, I remember losing a whole lot of weight and being like very, very tiny, like a 2 or 3, 4, something like that. And my sister-in-law actually called my doctor, said she's anorexic, you have to call her. I thought, no, I'm not. But I kept seeing this fat person in the mirror. I did not know that I was that thin. I really didn't. And the reverse is true. Now I see this fat person and it's like, it probably is true, but is it fatter than the fat that you actually see? I don't know, because your mind lies to you all the time. But I do know that what shows up on the outside is what you believe. So I set my screensaver and I put the weight I wanted to be, and I put a little path to it. And it's like, you will get there. You can do this. Because you have to flip that mind switch. And inside our brain it's like a servo meter. And it goes, oh, I've done this before. Okay, I can do it again. I know how to do this. And when you reset it and set it, it can take you home. But it has to be set. Go, Rusty.
All right, ladies, I have to tell you, my normal body size in my mind and in history, my almost 42 years of history, is 134 pounds at 5'11". I was really, really shocked after chemo and living in a very high duress, stressful few years that cortisol plays a huge part in weight gain. Mm-hmm. I quit smoking, chemo, and stress. And so I've had to try to adapt with this new body, which is 45 pounds heavier than I've ever been, and try to find my inner goddess and try to find that sanctity of being okay with it. I grew up in the generation of tab and aerobicizing, and anorexia was huge. Dexatrim, Exatrim, yeah. You know, demon worshipping, whatever. You know, so you had a bite of something and you didn't eat for 5 days. That was my generation. Mm-hmm. And so I've really had to, number one, I'm 100% believer of kill your TV. Turn it off. There's no point in spending all that money to watch commercials that are just going to degrade you. Get married if you want that. No, I'm just kidding. Another show. But, you know, throughout history, if you really read history and you're a reader and you're an explorer and it's beautiful. We're supposed to be a little meaty. We're supposed to be a little fluffy. And if somebody doesn't accept you for that, that hits your ego. So are you good with your ego? Can you let that go, or do you hold on to that? Get rid of the magazines, get rid of TV, get rid of Facebook propaganda, get rid of the friends that make you feel inferior because you're not having a salad, you're having pizza. And girls, I'm having pizza tonight, just saying, pesto, hello. You can only be good for you. And I totally agree that it's internal dialogue from historical influence. And in order for you to really embrace who you are, if somebody's going to love you, they're going to love you for who you are, not for who they want you to be. And that's an abusive relationship, another show. But, you know, understanding that internal dialogue and understanding that most of that stuff is just garbage that was fed to you, I think really is very healing.
You know, with it being close to the beginning of the year, everybody starts reflecting on goals, and weight loss is one of the number one goals everybody looks at beginning of the year. I posted an article a couple weeks ago, and I just pulled it up. You're never going to reach your weight loss goals until you show up with positive self-talk, timely language, self-awareness, precise detail, honest reflection, commitment, and congruence.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing on there says eat a lettuce leaf.
That's right.
And then go run for 4 hours.
But extremes never work.
No.
Right.
I mean, everything in moderation is what my mother used to say. And it was good advice for generations, but we don't seem to follow it anymore. We want instant gratification.
We are the generation of the microwave, of medical advertising on television that says a pill will fix it. And that's unfortunate because this is not something that can be fixed externally.
Yeah.
No, and I
So
sorry.
true. No, I was
That's
just going
okay.
to say, I love how, you know, when you were mentioned earlier, like it is these simple shifts, like a 2-degree shift can make such a huge impact in the long run. And I feel like when it comes down to self-image, I know we're talking a lot here about like weight being a big part of that because it is for so many. And I can remember like for millions of years, it felt like, well, I'm not that old, but you know, every year in my New Year's resolutions back when I used to do those back in the days, like I'm going to lose 10 pounds or whatever it was. And it's been years since I've done that. But I really think it came down to just like starting to love myself, as simple as like every time I look in the mirror, actually look in the mirror and say nice things to myself and keep doing that until it felt true, which is not something that happens overnight. But like those little things, those shifts were huge for me personally. And so I feel like, you know, with the self-image, there's so much that you can do that's easy. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a scary, hard thing, if that makes sense.
It does. I mean, I think that if we do make reasonable shifts, it's like when you're pregnant and you expect to get into your skinny jeans 2 weeks later. Well, that does not usually happen. So making small changes does help. But being kind to ourselves is the other thing that I'm not sure that I'm hearing from all of us. We have goals, we want to make them, but are we nice to ourselves as we go through it? I mean, yes, we've talked about negative self-talk, but what about self-compassion? Frankie?
Yeah, I mean, compassion is definitely something that I think we need to learn. You know, I've been talking about teaching compassion lately with a lot of people, and not just compassion, you know, for our body, compassion because we see animals who are being hurt and we see all kinds of stuff happening. So I think compassion is something that is lost on the society at the moment. I really do. I think there's compassion fatigue. You know, we're tired of being nice or tired of you know, showing compassion. And some people think it's weak. You know, oh, you're just being weak. Don't be weak. Like, you know, tell yourself to, you know, ship up and shape out and do that kind of thing.
Something like that.
Right?
Shape up, ship out. Okay.
Shape up, ship out. Don't be namby-pamby, you know? That's not going to get you anywhere. No, but I do think that we do need to be more compassionate, especially.
Now I'm going to throw something else at you. Compassionate, yes, but don't we also need to celebrate the small wins?
Yeah.
And I don't put that in the compassion category. I put it in a separate category because I think we
come with a chocolate bar.
Yeah, well, good. But I think that we often look for those huge strides, those massive epiphanies of change, and it doesn't usually work that way. Usually it's one step at a time until you finally notice the difference when you pull on a skirt that you couldn't wear before.
Yes. And you know what? I was very disappointed that nobody had noticed that I had lost weight. And then, but you know, I noticed, and that's great. Maybe you're so large that nobody notices and you have to just keep going until they do, you know?
Right. There you go. Until your skirt falls off. There you go. Rusty?
I think it's deeper than compassion. I think that it's awareness. We are a society that has developed into a very closed-door, closed-minded, segmented, crazy society where we look at, and you know Linda personally, and I'm not sure who else on the call knows what I do, but I advocate hugely for ending homelessness and abuse, physical, mental, emotional, and sexual abuse. And every day I go through watching these individuals demeaning and demoralizing people who are living in the streets and they have signs and so forth. And if they had actually sat down with that person and found out their story, they would at least walk in their socks for a second, and it would really awaken them. But instead, we have this whole mindset of getting our information from Dr. Google and these reality TV shows on cable, and we've neglected actually knowing our neighbors. We've neglected actually knowing our customers. All of us have customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But having that conversation where you're sitting down and having a cup of tea or a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or whatever your beverage choice is, and saying, hey, who are you? What do you do? Oh, you have 5 kids. That's amazing. How do you do that? And really embracing each other. That is beyond compassion. That is community. And I think that we lack and steer clear of having those emotional bounds. We do that with advertising. We do that with marketing. We do that with the 55,000 bazillion phone calls that we get a day that are based off of this new electronical system. Do you guys get those where they partially talk to you and it's
I do.
Robot thing?
Yeah, and then I block it. Then I block it immediately.
I block them too, but they still call back.
I block faster than you do, I think. We're going to go down to a break, and I want to put this in your mind so we can come back and talk about it after the break. I think you're right about the lack of community and the need for compassion, but let's talk after the break about judgment and why are we so judgmental with ourselves and with each other about this particular topic, because body image seems to be a universal topic that women around the world discuss. So we are talking right now with Kimberly Rinaldi, Frankie Picasso, Rusty McDonald, Amanda Testa. I'm Linda Crater, and we'll be back after this break. Don't go away.
We're Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and we'll return after these short messages.
This is TogiNet, Cutting Edge Radio. It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
During the holidays, temptation is everywhere. Christmas parties, office parties, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, New Year's parties, not to mention the cookie exchanges and delectable food gifts. It seems like every time you turn around, you're faced with temptation to eat the wrong foods and get off your healthy living lifestyle. I want you to know that you can go through the holiday season and make good choices and still have a fabulous and merry time. This holiday season, don't make food your focus. There's so much more to the holidays than just incredible food. Make your family, friends, and loved ones the focal point of the season. Center in on the true meaning of why we celebrate and give thanks. It's okay to enjoy some wonderful food, too. Just keep your portion sizes in check and stay faithful to your exercise. I'm Annette Hammond. Visit our website at AnnetteHammond.com.
Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion on body image, and we talked about judgment right before the break, and we are often so hard on ourselves and on others, and there is such a compare and despair attitude these days with social media and the ads that come on, and you're being manipulated in front of the television when you're shown all of the foods and all of that. But let's talk about how we can let's start with the judgment issue first quickly, and then move into how we can give tips and tricks that we think might help toward making a positive change in each of our lives about how we perceive ourselves and others. So let's go first to Kimberly.
I think, honestly, the judgment comes in just simply because it's shoved in our faces. everywhere. It really is. When you come from a media perspective, and I can go weeks without hitting a television or, anything outside of the computer that I don't need for work, I don't touch. When it comes to, I'm going to say, squelching that judgment, that self-judgment, and we all tend to be harsher with self than others, I have 2 words that I use, and I'm really, really passionate about these 2 words. And ladies, if you'd like to do a real quick exercise, just think about something that bothers you, that's been bothering you about yourself, whatever it is. Think about the issue, and then think about the feeling it brings up. And for me, I'll be honest, I walk around naked, back windows open. I don't care who sees me naked. I'm good with my body image. I'm squishy and strong and flexible and all of that. Lately, it's the freaking facial hair. I literally am freaking out by this. I'm losing hair on the top of my head, and
Hormones,
and it's growing on my face. So when I start freaking out, I have to apply this. So if you think about this, I talk about the fact that these hormones are driving me crazy. I'm losing my shit over it. 2 words: until now. Until now, those 2 simple words give your subconscious mind another direction, because you're going to keep perpetuating that negative self-talk until you don't.
True.
And when you use these words, it's a state break. It releases that grip just a little bit more. And if you just, sometimes we can't help but get into that, oh my God, I'm going bald. Oh my God, I'm growing a beard. Oh my God, my husband's Sicilian and I've got more facial hair than him right now. Until now. 2 words breaks that engagement, gives your mind something else to work on. And I practice that all the time. It's one of the ones that I talk about a lot when I'm doing my trainings and my student and client work. Try those 2 words and see how they work for you.
I love that so much. That is a beautiful way to change your thoughts. Yeah. I can kind of piggyback on that a little bit, because I think, like you mentioned, the judgment, I really feel like the relationship that we have to ourselves is the relationship we have to everything outside of us as well. So, when you catch yourself making those judgments, exactly like Kimberly said, like, have a strategy in place to change that thought, or to allow it, but yet not let it rule the show. I always like to talk, there's this great excerpt in this book, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, where she talks about fear being in the back seat, but it can pertain to anything. So maybe you have this negative voice, and you can allow it to be in the back seat of the car. It can have its say, but it's not allowed to touch the steering wheel. It's not allowed to touch the radio. You can just allow it and be like, all right, thank you. I appreciate your opinion. However, I'm going to choose to tap into the part of me that does know that I am amazing as I am. And the more you can tap into that part of you, then I feel like the more you try to shut that voice down, the negative one, the louder it gets. Because it's like, wait, no, listen to me. Because it is a part of your subconscious, and probably something you picked up from childhood or wherever it was. But the more you can let that empowered part of yourself run the show, the easier it is. And secondly, I would say is, when you're hanging out with your girlfriends and women, don't talk about your looks. Don't talk about how you lost weight, or I don't talk about that anymore ever. And I remember for so many years, that was always the first thing my friends would say. Oh, you look so skinny. Did you lose weight? Oh, you look so good. Did you lose weight? And although can be construed as a compliment, of course, it's like having that every focus of a compliment being on your body. Try to focus on other things that you can talk about and point out, other qualities of the person that you can actually bring light to. So it's not all on just the physical form, if that makes sense.
Tons of sense. Frankie here. You know what? They say that that mirror that you bring up, that judgment that you bring up on others is what you don't like about yourself. And I think that's really, really true. It was funny when Rusty was talking about the homeless people, and it brought that up for me that, it's almost like we're still back in the dark ages, in the crowd and the witch trials or whatever. They all, kill him. We're all so happy to gang up on people. We really are. We're happy to gang up and just hurt other people, and it makes us feel better about ourselves. I think it does.
Are you talking about bullying?
Yeah, like just bullying or this gang mentality, or like you'll see it go in waves through offices. You'll see it go in public. You'll see it when Ashley Graham stood out and every, oh, she's so fat. Oh, did you see her? How could she do that? I mean, women and men, like it's this feudal mentality almost, where we're happy to gang up, and we only feel good when we're kind of putting somebody else down.
Oh, that's sad.
It's very sad, but we do it to ourselves too, right? So Kimberly was right, and Amanda's right. We have to change, that voice, and we have to stop that language, and we have to physically, really, like, say out loud, stop, and change that message that was there, because that it's the go-to path right now, and we have to change the go-to path and go down a different neural pathway, and so that's a real hard stop, and with a new message, until it becomes the go-to pathway.
But it's funny. Sandra and I have this pact, sort of an informal one, where if she says something self-deprecating, self-negative, I stop her. She does the same for me. And so you really can. We can profess to do it on this group if you'd like today.
Yeah.
We can just stop one another when we say those things, because sometimes it's unconscious.
It is.
You've said it for so long, it's just part of your vernacular, and you just say it. And I don't think we realize the detrimental effect and the add to anxiety and depression, which is rampant in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend who does that with me, and she started it without my permission, bless her heart. She just looked at me one day and she said, "Now, why would you say that about my friend?"
Mm-hmm. That's nicely put.
Yeah. And I was all, yeah, self-check. It's important. It really is. Think about yourself as your best friend if you need to.
Rusty?
Yeah, I don't know why we don't.
Rusty?
I think we have cosmically and longevity, like in a long-term space and time, we have always been the person who puts everybody in front of ourselves. And we've always had to sacrifice. We've always had to minimize our own needs and our own perspectives and our own intellects. And when we come to this place of looking in a mirror and saying, "Hey, I love you," it's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I haven't said I love you to you since I was probably 3 or 4. Who are you? I'm sorry, who are you again? Like, why are you interrupting my conversation with my 3 dogs and my husband and my kids that are interrupting my potty time? So I think it's very difficult for women to stand erect in their own authenticity when we are constantly distracted from who we really are as an individual. We're often not I, we're often a we. Whether you have a 4-legged child or a 2-legged child, and sometimes our 2-legged children are 4-legged children, just saying, we neglect ourselves and we put ourselves in the back burner. And I think we're coming to a place where we're starting to put ourselves in the front burner, and that's a very challenging thing, don't you think?
I've got a comment, though. I think that as I've gotten older, I'm kinder to myself than I used to be. And I wonder, do you all feel the same, or do you feel like that's still a work in progress?
Kimberly here, I was walking through, where were we last night? Our refrigerator broke. We had to go buy a new fridge last night. And I'm walking through Home Depot and having a hormonal breakdown. And I'm literally crying. I'm a badass, still right? And bless Mr. Rinaldi's heart. He's all, "Yes, dear, people still fear you." But the fact that the fridge broke down, I'm in this hormonal flux right now. I started crying because the fridge broke. This was not a loss. This was not a death. And then I got mad at myself because I was so frail and fragile and friable. And then we got to the car, and he's all, "Okay, so what would you tell one of your clients?" I smiled and then said, "I'd tell her stop being such a baby and get her shit together." He's all, "No, you wouldn't." Okay. But that's just it. We have to really get kinder with ourselves before we can achieve any of this thing that we're calling self-actualization.
Yet I think we are kinder than we were as teenagers, and then the competitive 20s, etc. I do believe we've gotten better. We just need to keep working on it, correct?
Yeah, I think maybe, but damn, it's hard.
You know what's hard? The hard thing is that we have so much to deal with. You know, we got these hormones that kind of rule and you know, make us have things that we don't want, like hair on your chin and hair loss on your top of your head and all this stuff, and you know, make you hot when you don't want to be hot, and make you cold when you don't want to be cold, and all that stuff. And it's not, you know, you can cry out to the universe, it's not fair, but you know what, we are badass just for having to go through all that shit and still be here. So, you know, kudos to us.
Amen. I agree with you, Amanda. Then we were in our talk about it.
I totally agree. I feel like something happens the older you get. And I think we talked about this on one show too. Like after a certain age, you just have a lot more forgiveness for yourself. And maybe it's too just the more experiences and the things you overcome, you just have a more of a sense of accomplishment and knowing that you can get through hard things. And by, you know, an older age, you've had more experience of hardships. And I think that, and coming out on the other end, kind of adds to that feeling of resiliency and like feeling kinder to yourself and knowing that, hey, the world's going to make it hard enough for me. So I got to do a good job of being the one that's kind to me, because I can't expect the world to give that to me. You know, I got to give it to myself.
Well, then we only get one and only body to live with. And we have to be kind to our body because we live in our bodies.
Yes.
Where else are you going to live? Well, think about it.
Yep.
So, Frankie, any words of wisdom?
Well, it is the car that we get to drive while we're here, and we have to remember that we are not the car. We are the driver of the car. So to put ourselves and diminish ourselves because we don't like the make and model is not being fair to the person who's driving it, because it's getting you where you need to go. And I understand that, you know, you'd want a newer model, like I said, with perkier headlights, but this is it. And so you have to take care of it.
And you can find out more at dynamicwomentalkradio.com and come talk with us again. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for tuning in today to Dynamic Women Talk Radio, and join us each week. You can find more shows on dynamicwomentalkradio.com.